Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to Armor of God again, and as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully all of you will be edified with what we have put together for you here. And for this weekend, I just thought of releasing a short video, and it's going to be from my interview with Father Joseph Iannuzzi before, and it is going to be on St. Gemma. Now, there's an entry in her diary where her guardian angel ordered her to write the following. Remember, daughter, that whoever truly loves Jesus speaks little and bears all things. I command thee, on behalf of Jesus, to always refrain from giving your own opinion, unless it is asked, always to prefer silence to upholding your own views. And my question was, is this applicable to all of us as well? Or was it only for St. Gemma? And should we also then refrain from giving our own opinions?
It's a twofold answer. Number one, the word that is used here is opinion. That's a key word. It doesn't say, for example, founded concern or decisions taken in discernment. It says opinion. Opinion means something that is not grounded necessarily upon reflection, discernment, or truth. Number two, a similar example is in the life of St. Faustina. When the nuns with whom she lived, not all but a few, vexed her, gave her difficulty, and God exhorted Faustina to be very merciful with them. And one day Faustina replied to God saying, but they're taking advantage of my mercy and goodness. And God's response to her was, that is not a concern of yours. I will deal with that. I'm paraphrasing. But the question is, well, does that apply to all the things Faustina does? Should she always let people walk over her like a doormat? Of course not. Should we always keep silent and let people speak things even if they're wrong and make their decisions even if we know it's wrong? Of course not. So if our opinion is grounded in the truth and the result of discernment or even counsel, then we have an obligation to speak. And this is in the Catholic Catechism. It's in the Church's moral casuistry, moral teaching. I'll give you a few examples. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, whom I met twice, she joined a community of nuns, Dorothean sisters, and she decided to leave the community in which she had made vows to establish a community that was more devoted to the poor. So initially, her Mother Superior refused her consent. And Mother Teresa of Calcutta waited, consulted with her bishop in India, and after over a year, finally the Mother Superior said, okay, you can go. Now, suppose Mother Teresa kept quiet and didn't express any of her opinion. She would have never founded this community of the Missionaries of Charity. She followed what the Lord put in her heart. So she should have spoken, and she did. Another example is Father Benedict Rochelle, or Charles de Foucauld, St. Ignatius of Loyola. These are founders who had listened to the voice of God and acted upon it, but always with seeking counsel and discernment. So when the Lord talks about opinion, he's not referring to a decision expressed that is founded upon counsel and discernment. He's not talking about that. Take, for example, also the Blessed Virgin Mary herself. When the angel Gabriel appeared to her and told her that she would become the Mother of God, did she say, yes? No, she didn't. She said, how is this possible? She questioned. And that is because she did not simply want to obey blindly with her will without her intellect, but with both. She wanted to give a complete human consent of mind and body to God's fiat by giving him her own fiat with her mind and with her will. And then there's this heresy back in the 17th century of Quietism that was condemned by the church. Quietism was proposed by a Spanish priest by the name of Miguel de Molines, and it denied the necessity of human activity in one's own sanctification. In other words, you don't express your opinion, you don't speak, you just do whatever you're told. And the church has condemned that approach of Quietism. Quietism asserts that the highest spirituality is attained when the mind and the will are completely inactive, sort of like a doormat. Now, Pope Pius XI condemned 68 propositions of the founder of this movement, so to speak, Miguel de Molines, and So the point is, this applies to Faustina especially, but it means opinion and not so much decisions taken in discernment.
And then, regarding the part shared by Father Iannuzzi regarding Quietism, I was actually confirming with him that the Church doesn't teach blind obedience.
Yes, that's a good point. It's very much along the same side. I didn't mention this when I had that other interview, but yes, the First Vatican Council spoke about the importance of obedience and how Christians are to obey. I'll give you just a few examples. Gaudium et Spes, number 17. This is the hope and joy, Gaudium et Spes in Latin, the Second Vatican Council document. Number 17 of this conciliar document states that obedience to God is not, as some would believe, a heteronomy. Heteronomy means a military obedience. You just blindly obey as if the moral life was subject to the will of something absolute, extraneous, intolerant of one's own freedom. So the Church condemned this idea of blind obedience. It even stated that such a heteronomy would be nothing but a form of alienation, contrary to God's divine wisdom and to the dignity of the human person. In other words, God made no one to be a doormat. Human dignity requires man to act through conscious and free choice. And if God puts something in his heart that may change a bad situation to good, he has an obligation to say it. Okay? And another document that reiterates this teaching on the Church's informed and not blind obedience is the apostolic exhortation Vita Consecrata by Pope John Paul II the Great. In number 43 of this apostolic exhortation, Vita Consecrata, which is consecrated life in English, he stated that authority must be above all fraternal and spiritual, while those entrusted with it must know how to involve their brothers and sisters in the decision-making process, meaning that the superior is not supposed to blindly command the subject. Because, for example, let's take a superior who tells the student, jump off the third floor building because I told you. Would you do it? Of course not. It's sinful to take one's own life in that way. In fact, I was asked when I was a seminarian in Italy in 1991 by the novice master who was training us in the vows of poverty, chastity, obedience. I said, concerning obedience, what if you told me to jump off the top of a fifth floor building? Am I supposed to obey you? And he said to me, what would you do? And I said to him, I would say after you. And he smiled and he said, good answer. And that's the way we are to engage in this dialogue, whether it's Gemma Galgani with her peers or her elders, or just with a religious and a superior, or even among ourselves, parents and children and so forth.
Well then, I wasn't planning on releasing any compilation this time, just something we can all reflect on together, even if it's something we've listened to before. But just before we get to the end of this video, there are two clips of Father Reehil here that caught my attention, and I really wanted to share them with you here. So we'll start with this one.
Whether you want to or not, you're in the battle. You're in the battle. Satan hates all of humanity, but in particular, Christians. And of Christians, I would say, with the ones with the target on the back, are the ones where we read in Revelation 12 exactly who he's making a war against. Revelation 12 verse 17 says, then the dragon was enraged at the woman, Our Lady, and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands and hold fast to their testimony about Jesus. Okay, so that's a very specific group. That is not all baptized. That's the baptized who are obeying God's commands and giving a true witness to Jesus Christ. Okay? That's a small segment of the population, even among Christians, because we know that about 80% of Catholics don't even go to church every Sunday, so they're not upholding God's commands. Then there's even probably a large group who are deliberately giving a false testimony about Jesus when they say that they're pro-abortion, when they say they're pro-gay marriage, when they say you can choose your gender. Those go directly against the personal witness of Jesus Christ. So it's a small group. Some people will spend many, many, many years being mad and frustrated with people who do not want the truth. We can't make somebody want truth. Some people just enjoy living in a fantasy. Look at Instagram, all these pictures of these people. Some of them are actually in these places. Other people I've seen people, a Ferrari is parked and they pull up next to it, take a picture, Photoshop it a little bit, and they post it to their page as though it's their car. People are living in la la land. A lot of people. It's not really what's happening. In 2 Timothy 4, we hear the words, "For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires, because they have itching ears, they will head up for themselves teachers, and they will turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to fables." Isn't that where we're living right now? That's exactly what we're living in this day and age. People are turning away from truth and producing their own doctrines, which are not what God gave us in his scripture.
And then this is also another one that caught my attention about being soldiers of God.
Endure your hardships as a true soldier. Endure hardships as a true soldier, because soldiers are trained differently than the ordinary citizens. They are expected to go through hardship. They are trained for hardship. They are trained in the most caustic circumstances. So when they go into battle, it's not the first time they're experiencing it. So God is raising soldiers, not sissies, not wimps. God is raising up warriors. You can't be flighty or unfocused. You're going to go through some things in this life that are going to be difficult, and you have to keep pressing into Jesus. That's where all of our comfort comes from him.
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And hopefully all of you have learned a lot from this relatively short video. And remember, if there's any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. And until the next one, thanks again for watching, and may God bless you.